Although the news in our personal lives continue on past a singular event towards a more hopeful future, we want to take the time and space in this newsletter to remember and condemn the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol. Emory's Division of Physical Therapy issued a statement denouncing the act of domestic terrorism that played out on national television that day. Shocking as it may have been to many, this was not a sudden or surprising act of violence. Instead, it was a visible act of hatred that grew from a steady current of racism, misogyny, and othering in our society.
This act does not represent what we believe or what we value in Emory's DPT program. Committees like these focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion for the students, faculty, and staff at Emory exist to build bridges against the vitriolic ideology we saw on display in D.C. We remain steadfast in our mission, founded in valuing and celebrating difference, increasing representation, and respecting the diverse members of our community. Recognizing the mental and emotional toll this continued march towards equality takes on us individually, we would like to spend the next few minutes sharing mental health resources for anyone in the program in need of support.
We would also like to highlight the updated reporting process and strongly encourage all community members to report harassment or discrimination of any kind. Please visit the link at the bottom for more information.
Over the last year, there's been an emphasis on issues and topics related to the separate tenets of diversity, equity, and inclusion. In a few sentences or one word, please describe what the undertaking of these initiatives here at Emory University, and specifically within the Division of Physical Therapy, has meant to you and for those you serve.
The diversity initiatives at Emory, what they mean to me is that all the voices are being heard, that we as a community, as an institution, are all moving towards the right goals, that we have the right targets and vision in mind for our future, and we're making strides towards that. And all of us are in it together. So it's a small but important step, one step at a time. And even though we may not be perfect, we're moving towards that perfection, moving towards those goals.
For me, DEI means an equal chance to be great for everybody involved.
A holistic approach to growth.
It's fostering a community in which we celebrate each other's differences rather than trying to hide them.
That my voice does carry weight, and I think it also emphasizes that there's strength in numbers.
That everybody has a seat at the table, and that's the only table that I want to sit at.
It's that I matter, and that change, positive change, is on its way.
So I've charged to come up with one word, right, to represent the excellent and amazing work the DEI committee is doing in this important initiative. And I would have to choose listening. I think it's a fundamental core aspect and characteristic of this work. It's and I think about it across from a chronological perspective. So I think of listening back to our individual and familial stories and our collective societal history and stories, and how those stories really shape and craft the lens that we have with our current perspective. And in the present moment, really learning to be mindful in our listening. How can we be more fully present with a sense of vulnerability and compassion to truly hear each other's stories, but also with a sense of real courage and authenticity to listen within ourselves of our own struggles and our own biases and our thoughts and emotions around those experiences. And finally, listening forward. So listening forward to what a shared vision of DEI would look like together, and how we can best listen to signs to guide us along that path, and listening for the wisdom to help us make the best choices, and listening for the real future perspective of what it may look like as we collectively build this beloved community.
Emory DPT faculty, staff, and students have been hard at work on DEI-related initiatives for the spring of 2021. On February 9th, Emory DPT faculty and staff underwent an updated and revised unconscious bias training session that was provided by the School of Medicine. On March 2nd, Director of Clinical Education, Dr. Nunez, and Assistant Director of Clinical Education, myself, Dr. Kasten, in collaboration with clinicians from the community, will host a course for our clinical partners entitled Creating Inclusive Environments Through DEI-Informed Practices. This course will be held on March 2nd from 6 to 8 p.m. In May of this year, a listening session with the clinical education faculty and students is being planned. This is in order to provide an opportunity for students to share their experiences and challenges in the clinical environment as it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and ethical issues. Additional activities that faculty and staff and students have been working on include the following. On February 6th, class of 2021 DPT student Justin Otiwu and Dr. Ben Rogozinski, Director of Admissions, hosted a virtual event for Emory DPT candidates entitled Revisited, where individuals had an opportunity to meet with faculty and staff and students to discuss questions and concerns related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and ask questions. Thank you very much to Dr. Rogozinski and to Justin for organizing this event. With a great deal of help from student DEI committee members, the Student Clinical Education Handbook has also been revised and edited to reflect more inclusive language and policies. Finally, the Emory DPT Exit Survey, which students will complete prior to graduation, is undergoing updates currently to include more specific and relevant questions related to areas of diversity, equity, and inclusion. These initiatives were inspired by feedback from faculty, staff, and students about DEI-related priorities and needs in the program. The work is never done, and we are excited to update you about future initiatives in upcoming newsletters.
Happy Black History Month! This month, the department has organized and hosted events that highlight prominent Black figures in our society. Our social media pages have also been used as a platform to amplify the voices of those heroes to ensure history is remembered and celebrated. Be on the lookout for the next event, hosted by the Med School the week of February 21st. A free screening of Black men in white coats throughout the week, followed by a panel discussion on February 24th. We also want to emphasize that the DPT program and the School of Medicine as a whole will be celebrating each and every Affinity Month in order to continually recognize the contributions of all individuals in our society, especially those who come from underrepresented groups. We will continue to foster a sense of community and inclusion so all persons feel safe and represented here at Emory.